Hi, my name's Sarah. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give you a demo of Essential. So John's going to do a bit of an intro into the tool and EAS, and then I'll give you a demo with the views and data maintenance. So just some introductions first. As I said, my name's Sarah. I've been with EAS for about 20 years. Originally, it was an enterprise architecture consultancy, so I was a consultant, and then I've been involved in the development of Essential tool over a number of years. John?
Hi, my name is John Mayle. I founded EAS 20 years ago as an enterprise architecture consultancy. I did leave. I was chief architect at one of the world's largest asset management firms for 5 years. I was chief architect at one of the world's largest insurance brokers for 3 years, and I came back a few years ago, primarily because of the commercialization of Essential. So I'm an architect, most of the team were architects, and I think, as you'll see, the tool is built based on our architecture experience. Right, I will give a quick introduction, and then we'll get into a demo from Sarah. So my introduction will take 5-10 minutes, and then Sarah will give you a detailed demo of the tool. Okay, so a bit about EAS. Company background, we started as architects in the year 2000. We were an EA consultancy firm, and what happened doing our EA consulting work is that we found the tools on the market didn't do what we wanted. They were very much around drawing diagrams, and what we wanted was the ability to ask questions of the architecture, manage the enterprise architecture. That's where Essential came from. So we still do enterprise architecture consultancy. All that EA consulting we do feeds into the tool, feeds into the meta model. And I think, as you'll see as you go through, the meta model that we built over the years is very broad. It supports all those enterprise architecture questions that we get asked, and we extend it as we get new questions that we uncover. It is broad, which is good in one sense. In another sense, the danger is, with it being so broad, you could end up populating everything and hoping that you'll get some magic happen. That's not the way to work with your enterprise architecture tool. So we always say be very focused in how you use it. You don't use all the model from day one. You build up to that point over time to be successful. So as I said before, we're architects. We do provide consulting services, but this is really about Essential itself. In terms of clients, in terms of the spread of our clients, I think you can see there we've got clients across financial services, government, pharma, media, consulting, the retail sector, energy, automotive. We've got clients from pretty much every sector you can think of, and you can see that spread across the globe in terms of those. And then we also have alongside it, we've got Launchpad, Essential Launchpad, which is a free pack that we give away to both our commercial clients and our open source clients. And what that lets you do is build a foundation architecture up very quickly. So it lets you capture your business capabilities, your business processes, your applications, your technology, your information, your data, and then gives you that foundation which you can then build on in whichever direction you want to. And it also lets you expand out into strategy, into technical fit, business fit, etc., around your application state, etc. Sarah will cover a bit of that later. But we've got lots of people using that. Again, you can see from the sectors there, we've got sectors across the world in terms of media, retail. Some of the biggest companies in the world use this thing. So what is Essential? Well, in effect, if you think about your organization, your people, your processes, your systems, and within there, they're all interconnected. Think about your business process owner. Your business process owner, she knows the process she performs, she knows where it's performed, she knows who's in her team, she knows what applications the team uses, what information they capture. What she doesn't know is where the application's hosted or what technologies it's got. She doesn't care about that. If you speak to the application owner knows the technology the application uses, the database, the data it captures, the information. Probably the processes, may not know all the processes, but a number of the processes that the application is used in. They probably don't know who the teams are that use it, but they just know the process and potentially the process owner. They may not know where that actually technology that they're using is hosted, for example. However, what we've got is we've got the server teams that actually know, we know that this thing's hosted in, I don't know, AWS or Azure. We've got a technology hosted, server hosted locally as well in our own data center, etc. They know that information. And what happens with Essential is we bring all that together, we connect it together, and then we get this overall holistic view of the organization. And then we can overlay things like strategic plans against it. We can look at it from a regulation perspective, etc. And we start to ask questions of that model in terms of what's the impact in terms of risk, what's the impact of my strategy, are we secure, etc. So that's what Essential is doing. It's combining that data from lots of different people and then giving you an overall holistic view of the organization. Now I'm going to skip this slide. This is just a bit detail where we came from back in 2009. But this is the key slide really, which is how do we get data into that meta model? So as I said at the start, the meta model is broad and it has a depth to it that you probably don't see in any of the other EA tools out there. And the reason for that is because you think about the organizations are complex. And you have to model that complexity to understand what the implications of change are, the implication of moving something or risk. So our meta model supports that. Now, the way you populate that meta model is via a number of mechanisms. You can do it manually. So we have a forms-based data capture that you capture data into the tool. You're going to see all this later when Sarah will show you, but forms-based. We have APIs. We've got probably about 70 to 80 APIs, REST APIs. You can get data into Essential or back out of Essential. And we've got clients that have integrated with things like ServiceNow. They've integrated with things like Oracle HR. We've seen Qualys. We've also seen integrations with Sparks and Visio. They're a little bit trickier, but you can do that. And basically, you have to build the integrations on your side. So we provide the APIs. You have to basically manage the integration on your side. So clients using ServiceNow, for example, they use the ServiceNow integration tool to actually map to our APIs to get data in and out of Essential. We've also got people that use the APIs to get data out to things like Tableau, ClickView, Power BI. Because whilst we do quantitative data, there are better tools out there for quantitative analysis of data. The real power of Essential is around qualitative data. So why, what's the implication of those sort of questions is what Essential is about. The import utility, that's another way of getting data into Essential, and this is what Launchpad uses. So you can import Excel, you can import XML, you can import CSVs into Essential and populate that meta model using Excel spreadsheets if you want to. Launchpad basically does that foundation, populates that meta model, and you just basically upload the spreadsheet to the import utility, apply a file, and then you run that, and then it creates the import for you. And then finally, and this is key for us, it's what we call everyone's Essential. And the idea is it allows you to push the data out to the organization. So remember a second ago, I talked about the fact that you've got your process owner that knows her process, you've got the server teams that know the servers, you've got the application owners that know the applications. Well, you want to be able to let them catch that information for you without having to know anything about Essential. They don't need to be trained in Essential, need to understand the meta model, etc. Now, importantly, I talked about the complexity of our meta model. We want to abstract away that complexity from these users. And this is what Everyone's Essential does. It provides a simple way of capturing data in that is familiar, that is usable, that under the covers is managing that meta model for us and automating the modeling of that data. It's a real important thing for us because, as we've seen in our experience, the tools that fail to engage the business, fail to engage the wider organization. And we think that Everyone's Essential is the answer to that. So you see, we've got a number of editors, we call them. You'll see a number of these later. We're bringing more and more into the tool as we move forward. Anyway, once that meta model is populated, then what you've got is the views at the top. And the views can meet various different needs. It can be architects, it can be business analysts, it can be enterprise architects, it can be CXOs, business leaders, business users. We've got views to meet all those different needs. Just one caveat there, there are lots of views in there. I think it's about 130 roughly views in there. We wouldn't recommend you switch them all on day one. You'd be very focused, very targeted. You turn them on as you have the data. But you'll see this later when Sarah gives the demo, the scope of views we've got. Now, one important thing to know about Essential is what it is and what it isn't. So what we say, it's not a drawing tool. So if you're expecting to replace your Sparks or your Visio or your Archimate, that's not Essential. Essential is about the data that comes from those and using that data to gain insight, in effect. So you can capture data into Essential, use those mechanisms we talked about, and you can answer questions that your CXOs are asking, which are things like, where's my spend? Where's my risk? What's the impact of regulation? What if we acquire this company or divest this part of our business? And as EAs, the questions we're after are really things that say, look, where can we be more efficient? Have we got duplication? Can we reduce our costs? Are we secure? What technology do we want to be optimal for our needs? How do we govern that, for example? And from a solution perspective, we support all those questions the solution architects have got and the people that are doing change have got around, look, where does this system communicate? What's the implication of me changing this interface? Where do I source my data from? What technologies can I use? How many interfaces does this application have? What if I leverage this server? Those sort of questions that you want as part of your design of projects or design of change, we answer all those, but we're geared towards effectively the management of that information. So the right-hand side, the EAs and the CIOs, CXOs. So we support the solutions and we support the insight and the decision-making process. So what do you actually get with Essential? So out of the box, we've got about 130 views. Now, we've also got access to Launchpad, but you get that free anyway, so you can download that off the website. We've got free EA models. Again, you can download those off our website. We've got a number of what we call data update packs around business capability models. We've got a number of APQC process models that are just free for you to download as a starting point. You get the APIs, so those bi-directional APIs. You've got a choice between a single sign-on, or if you don't want to go down the single sign-on route and want to have a simple login, we can put multi-factor on there. You get the everyone's essential data capture in the commercial products. You've got notifications and collaboration in there. We support multilingual, and that's multilingual down to an instance level if you want. So you can have all the views can have multilingual headings, and you can have instances, or pretty much anything you like can be multilingual within the tool itself. It's unlimited users, so the fee you pay, that is it for the year. It doesn't matter in terms of how much data you put in there, how many users you've got in there. So as long as it's EA data, it's unlimited users, and that fee, once you buy into the Essential platform, that price increases purely by UK inflation every year on year, and that's it. You get the meta model that we give you. You get the import utility we talked about. You get a very deep audit, so you can actually see who changed what on what date, from what to what. So we've got that within the tool as well. And then security, a very powerful security model that lets you control anything from instances, classes, views, portals, slots, pretty much anything. So you can lock down a very high level or a very detailed level if you want to, and you've got a choice around how you do that. And then what we're always pushing out new views. So we tend to push out new views on a regular basis. Probably every couple of months you'll see a new view at least appear in Essential. We're building more of these editors. You're going to see more and more of these editors coming out over time. So our move towards this ability to let the wider organization capture the data for you is a key part of that. And then finally, one thing we're working on at the moment is what we call Essential Advisor. And the idea around that is the idea that based on the data in Essential, it should be able to recommend to you what you can do next. So you'll see that coming shortly into the tool itself. And that's all supported by our EA consulting, by Essential training. We've got accelerator packs. So you've got 130 out of the box views. You can do great APM with that. You can do great data management with that. The accelerators are effectively on top versions of those. So we've got an enhanced APM pack, an enhanced data management pack. Now, what they give you is some additional views, some data capture support, and also it's a lot more data. So there's more insight in there, but it requires a lot more data. And we only recommend that if you've got the data to support it. So, for example, the APM pack requires deep process data to actually work effectively. So if you haven't got that data, then I wouldn't bother with the accelerator pack for APM, for example. But if you want to, that's your choice. We can talk to you about that before you make any buying decision. We've got Essential Launchpad, which we've talked about already. The Essential Value Review is a 6-monthly review that we give to our clients. And what we'll do is we'll sit down and talk to you about how successful you've been with Essential. If you achieve your objectives, if not, why not? And we'll give you routes out of, if it's not going well, routes to be successful. And we've had a number of, a couple of cases really where people have taken our not taken our recommendation, which is don't try and boil the ocean from day one. They've probably gone down that route, and then we've actually pulled them back on track again by actually getting them to be focused, and that's been quite successful, just to help people be successful. So we're always talking to our clients, just making sure everything's okay, seeing if they need help, and we're always keen to help out. So value is a real good use of that. And then finally, Essential Playbook, that is actually on the website. That's free. That just gives you different ideas as to where you can start with Essential to be successful. So what you're trying to achieve, what data have you got? It talks about how to be successful, who you need to talk to, who to engage, what your outcomes should be, etc. It does that, and you'll see that actually get pushed into Essential Advisor shortly as well. So that's effectively the products and services we sit around Essential. Right, I'm going to hand over to Sarah now just to give you the demo, but before she does that, she'll just describe our meta model that sits behind Essential, and then we'll get into the demo itself. Sarah?
Okay, thank you. Okay, very quickly on the meta model, I'm not going to spend too long on this. Just to say that we have 4 layers now, which is fairly standard: business, application, information, data, and technology. And we think of them as conceptual, logical, and physical. Conceptual we think of as the what. So what are your business capabilities? What's your business strategy? What do you need your business to do? What do you need your applications to do to support that? At a high level, what information and data do you need to support your applications and your capabilities? And again, at a high level, what do you need your technologies to do? So it's a very high level, very conceptual. When we get down to the logical level, we think of that as the how. So what processes have you got to support those capabilities? What do they need applications to do, which is really important? And then which applications can provide those functionality or that functionality for them? What data does the application hold? What information do your processes need? And again, at a high level, what technology? So what do you need technologies to do, and then which technology products could you use to provide those components to you? And then down at the physical layer, we think of that as the where. So where are your teams located? Physically, where are your applications deployed? Where's the data held? And physically, what data store is it in, which allows you to do things like quality of it? And where's your technology deployed, and where are your servers or your cloud deployments? And physically, where are they? As John mentioned, this is an ontology, and that means that all of the relationships between all these classes are predefined. So that makes it very easy to use, and it also makes it very easy to extend. So if you do find something that isn't in the meta model that you want, you can extend it yourself, or we can do it for you if you'd rather. And then down here we have the support meta model. You can see the types of things in there. There's a lot more in there than we're showing here, but you've got things like strategy management, change management, life cycle, cost, security. The reason we've pulled it out is because it can work then on all or any of these layers. So if you think about cost, you could have your application cost, you could have your technology cost, you could have your enterprise cost and look at it per capability, for example. So again, it allows you to be very flexible in what you wanted to do. And as John mentioned, that flexibility also then goes into the views. So you can create your own views, you can tweak your views. That's all open to you if you want to. Okay, so I'm just going to grab the screen now and give you a demo. Okay, so what you're seeing now is the homepage of the viewer. So I'm going to concentrate first of all on the views and then look at some of the data maintenance. So this allows you, again, with Essential, it allows you to set up your portals. So we've got various portals set up here. You can put your logo on here, you can put your brand on here, you can have your colours on here. So you can make it look like your organisation, like your intranet. And we're today going to go into the EA portal and look at, this is all of the out of the box view. So everything I'm showing you in here is out of the box. As John mentioned, we do have some advanced packs, but today we're just concentrating on what you get out of the box for the base price. So if we start down at the business layer, generally where we like to start, or I like to start anyway, if we go into our business application footprint, you'll see that this is your capability model. So these are your capabilities. We generally have sort of the key ones, the core ones for your organization in this format, but you can choose how to lay them out. And on this, we can overlay your application footprint. So for example, you can see in the price and strategy capability, we have 8 applications supporting that. And we can see here whether they're packaged or bespoke applications. We can also go through and we can look at a summary of that capability. So again, these views tend to be sort of across the main classes, and they're everything you'd need to know about, for example, this capability. So we can see the domain it sits in, the parent and child capabilities, any supporting processes and sub-processes, high-level information required by this capability. From an application perspective, we think about what the applications are needed to do. And this is quite important for Essential. So we can break your applications down into application services. And for us, an application service is the business functionality that an application is offering. So if you think of an HR app, Workday or Oracle HR, they will do things like payroll management, absence management, maybe employee development. So you know, and each application generally has around 6 or 8 services or functionality. And what we can see here is that this capability requires an application to provide a pricing analysis service. It's using CloudBuy to do that, but there are these 3 other applications that it could, or that are being used elsewhere in the organization. So potentially we can see there's some overlap and some duplication that we can look into. So that's the application perspective. Again, we can look at the business objectives, so the strategic goals and objectives that are being supported by this capability, and any projects that are impacting that capability. And anywhere where you see these things, you can click through and you can go and look at more detail of another view. If I go back to this here and just look at the overlay again, we saw when we clicked here, we had the option to go off and look at a rationalization analysis view. So we can look at our applications and we can see, you know, there was some overlap there. So we're going to go and look at our rationalization view. And what this does is it carries those applications over in this basket. So you can look at all of your applications if you want, but it's carrying through the ones from that particular capability. So if I click on Black Curve, for example, I can see that from the one supporting that capability, there's 100% overlap with these 2 applications. They're all doing the same thing. These 2 are all doing exactly the same thing as Black Curve. So that's a real high potential for rationalization there. You can also choose to look at this view, again, from an application perspective, but also from a service perspective. So if you were buying a new platform or a new application, you can then define and capture in here the services or the functionality that application is going to offer you. And you could see what else you could replace in your organization. So you're buying a new application or a new package. what else could you get rid of? And this will allow you to pick up not only the ones you know about, but maybe some of the shadow IT or the Excels that you've got around that potentially you could get rid of as well. Okay, so if we go back again into the business area, we have another view of our capabilities to applications is our business capability application fit. So again, this is the same capability model, but it looks slightly different because we've got, rather than just a number, we've got all of the applications in there. And we can see here we've got our business fit from poor to average to complete. We can look at it by business fit or technical fit. And we can compare applications. So if, for example, I wanted to highlight a particular application, I could select one here. And then I can scroll down and I can clearly see everywhere that application is used. And I can see that it has, the business has a different perception of it in legal management and supplier management than they do in some of the other capabilities. So if you're comparing applications, that's really useful to understand from a business perspective and a technical perspective how well they meet your needs. From a process perspective, we can also capture processes. And we can look at them in a number of ways. So we have the idea of a process family, and this is useful for where you've maybe got a federated organisation and you've ended up with lots of different ways of doing the same process. So this allows you to compare that. So I can see I've got a collect metadata process, and I can see I'm doing it different ways in Asia Pac and Europe. And that may be required. It may be that for legal reasons, you have to do it that way, or it may just be because they've built their own processes up and their own applications. We can see here the applications they're using, and that was they're quite different. So again, if you're looking at rationalization, you want to look at whether you can standardize your processes, and that will help with rationalization as well. So that's one way of looking at processes. And then of course you can go and you can look at an individual process. So again, I could look at a particular process, and that will let me see from a process perspective, is it standard or customized, the cost if I've captured it, capabilities supported, the type of role that would be required to perform this process, any sub-processes that are captured, which organisations perform the process. So we can see here we've got two different organisations performing the same process, and they're actually using different applications to do that. And we can see the sites they're located at, and also which bit of the application they're using if we can capture that detail. And also the high-level information required. We can also capture process flows if you want to. So some people do. Some organisations have them in a different in a BPMN modelling tool and just link into some of it, or you can capture flows in here. If we go down and look at the application layer, so we have our application reference model. Obviously, we have those across all of our main classes. So in here, you've got your application capabilities and your application services. So again, this is looking at duplication, but not with that business sort of slice on it, if you like. So if I go down here again, I can see energy price analysis has 7 applications performing that same process. And if I hover over, I can see the standards. So you can set different standards for different parts of your organization. So we can see here, if I was in data processing, I should use AdExcel Energy Manager to provide my energy price analysis. But if I'm in marketing, I should use Black Curve. So depending on the needs, you can define different standards, and you can also see your life cycle status as well. You can also, against applications, capture the integrations, so we can see the where information is passing between applications. So again, if I look at it from an individual application perspective, I can see in the middle here I have my application, AdExcel Energy Manager, and it's getting information from these 3 applications and it's sending it out to these 3. I can choose to model to that level, so just I know there are integrations, or I can look at a bit more detail and see the type of information that's being passed, how it's getting there, and the frequency. Or I could go right down into the detail of that feed and understand everything it does, where else it's used, the security or the attributes in there. So again, it depends what you're doing and what your aim is as to the level of modelling that you may go down to. We also capture costs against applications. So from a cost perspective, you can understand the type of cost. So we could see here 46% of our costs go on support costs and 9%, for example, on maintenance costs. And these costs are the ones that you enter. So you enter the cost that you capture. These are just examples that we've put in, and then the view will pick those up. So it's not hard-coded. You can pick what you want to capture and how many you want. And then we've got the differentiation level of the app. So again, we can see here that we're spending 56% of our money on system of records and only 10% on system of innovation. And you can take a view as to whether that's right or that needs some changing. And then obviously we've got the cost per app here. We can look at the link down to our technologies. So we can understand that, again, if we look at our AdExcel Energy Manager, we can understand that it needs a web browser, it needs .NET Runtime Services, it needs a single sign-on solution, and we can see the products it's using: Google Chrome, Microsoft.NET, and Okta. Okay, we can see that actually that's all fine, because from a standardization level, they're all recommended or permitted, and they're all in production. If they weren't, you could click here and you could see what else you have in your organization that you could use there. And lastly, in the application layer that I'm going to show you, we can link off to our technology deployments. So we can look at where this application is deployed. So again, if I select Add Excel Energy Manager, I can see that it's hosted in Germany and Ireland, and I can see everywhere else it's accessed from. These are the organizations that are using the application and where they're located, and these are all the servers or cloud deployments, so technology nodes we call them, that it's on. So again, if I wanted to look at AWS Frankfurt, I can go through and I can get a view of that and say, well, what else is hosted here? So if we had an issue with that AWS deployment, what's going to be impacted? If we go on down then to the technology layer, we again, you won't be surprised to hear, have our technology reference model. So again, you can look at the technologies, you can look at it by organization or for your whole organization. And again, we can look at duplication. So for example, in user interface, these are the things I need my technologies to do. These are the products I have providing them. So a single page web app framework, I've got 6 products all providing that. So that's why it's red, there's a high duplication. If I want to go into the detail, I can just click these arrows to go into each area in more detail. So if I click there again, I can see the components and I can see all the products within there. If I go and view Office 365 as an example, I can then see the lifecycle status of this technology, the components that it offers, the applications that are using it. And because it's this application is using it, it impacts all of these processes. Obviously, that's a lot because it's 365, it could be less, but you can understand if there's an impact on that technology, all of these processes are going to be impacted. We have a lifecycle view, so you can capture your vendor and your internal life cycles for your technologies. And again, you can look if they're coming up to end of life, you can look and see what applications are deployed on them. So again, just looking at how high the risk is of that coming up to end of life, depending on the applications and therefore the processes that are being used. And we also have our strategic technology product selector. So this is a view that's really aimed at the solution architects and understanding what they can use. So again, if you've bought a new application or a new platform, this is where you can define the technologies that you need. So as long as you've defined your technology reference architectures, you can define what you need for this application. You can set requirements if you like. So if particular things are really important to you in terms of, say, scalability or cost or lead time, you can change these, for example. And then you can look at your reference architectures and see which meet your needs. And then you can select one or more. And then this is where the solution architects can understand the products that they can use. So I can see that I need a proxy server. I can see that I have these technology products that could do it. These 2 would require a waiver. These 2 are permitted. So as a solution architect, I can go through and I can define what I'm going to use for my new platform. And the idea behind this is that it can give you sort of save time in your governance. So if I get to here and I'm all on strategy, the idea is that you can print the report off, send it off to the review board, and you don't need to go along. If you're under maybe a certain budgetary amount and you're all on strategy, then you can just go ahead. You don't need to wait and be held up in their queue for getting governance. If we go back up to the top, we'll just have a look at a couple of the sort of more enterprise strategic views. So we have our strategic roadmap view. So in Essential, we have the idea of roadmaps and strategic plans and projects. So if I look at a particular roadmap, I can see these are my strategic plans, so long-term plans that can enable me to implement this roadmap. And then I can look at my projects, so the more detailed projects that are going to implement those plans and may cut across plans. So if I go into one of these, if I look at maintenance outsourcing, I can see the dates. And then if I click through at that summary, I can see all the things in my organization it's going to impact. So it's going to outsource 3 business processes and an organization. It's going to decommission a couple of applications, and it's going to establish a new application. I can see dependencies between plans. I can see the objectives, so the strategic business objectives that are being supported, so why I'm doing it, and I can see the projects that are going to deliver that change. And if I wanted to go back here, I could then go through and I could look at that for a particular project as well. So a project summary is generally a bit more detailed. So you can have sort of different dates as well. You can have a planned start date and an actual start date. You've got an approval status. You can capture the key people in that project. So your sponsors and managers, you can capture everyone, which bits of the organisation are being impacted, and then what's actually being changed. So we can see here we're enhancing a business capability and an application. That's all that this project is doing. But you can see, again, which strategic plans are being supported and the dependencies between all the plans and all the things in there. The other way that you can look at that strategy as well is with our roadmap view. So on quite a number of our views, we have what we call roadmap enablement. So I'll show you that on our IT asset dashboard. And the IT asset dashboard is a nice strategic view that you can show to your sort of senior management. So again, you can look at it across your whole organisation, or for a particular part of your organisation. You can have a global map, or you can have it down to a country map if that suits your business better. But again, we've got high-level business capability model, and we can look at duplication across that. So you can see where you've got duplication of these are the services and these are the number of applications you've got doing the same thing. You can go down and look at the overview of your application estate, so the code base of your applications. If you're moving, for example, towards a packaged strategy, you can see how you're getting on, and your delivery model. If you're moving to cloud, you can see how that's going. And again, you can look at duplication just within the application estate. And then down at the technology level, we can see release status. So these are the technologies that are in end of life, just 3% there, and we've got our delivery model too. And you can look at, again, duplication or legacy risk. The other thing that you can do in here, if we focus on the business capability model here, we can see we've got this bar here with roadmap enablement. If you've captured strategic plans, this will show. If you don't have any, then it just won't show. If you've captured your strategic plans, you can roll the clock forward and say, assuming I'm going to make the changes that I've laid out in my strategic plans, show me what this model will look like in, say, 3 years' time. And I can click here, and you'll see that some of the duplication disappeared there. So whatever plans I've put in place are going to make it look like this in October 2024. And that's on a number of reviews and allows you to see if you're going to meet your aims. So that's just a skirt through. It's not everything that's a skirt through the type of things you can do with Essential. So I just wanted to look now at data maintenance. There's getting data in and data maintenance. So John mentioned Launchpad. So Launchpad is a spreadsheet that we offer. And the Launchpad populates about 25 views. And this is a real good starting point if you don't have any A tools. If you're starting out and you've got a lot of stuff in spreadsheets, this is a really quick way to get that data into Essential. So it's a standardized spreadsheet. You put your data in and import it, and then you're populated. And what we have on the How to Populate tab here is all of the views that Essential could populate and all of the worksheets in that initial Launchpad foundation. And you can click on a view and see which worksheets you would need to complete to get that view to light up, so telling you what data you need. Or you could highlight, what data you've got. You can populate these sheets and you can see which views you'd get. So that's quite a useful thing, and that's really good just for that initial data capture. And then once you've got your data in there, John mentioned the editors that we would see your sort of users being able to maintain their own data. And the idea behind this is that, if, for example, I show you the application editor, if I understand the applications, I would be able to use this editor without really having to know anything about Essential or anything about architecture modeling. Because I know the application, I would be able to use the editor. So it's about this application. I've got a number of tabs across the top here. So I can see here I've got general details, name, description. If I wanted to change any of these, it's just clicking. So if I say, do you know what, that wasn't a package, it was a package that we customized, I can just click there and that's updated. If I said that's not public cloud, it's private, that's updated. You can add your deployment dates. You can just, set the dates in there or update them or change them. If I say we're not going to retire it now till 2026, that's then updated. In terms of, I've spoken about the services that we offer. So in terms of the services, these are the services we've defined that this application offers. If I want to update it, and this works the same way across all the editors, you click the update functionality button here, okay? So I can look at this and I can see these are all the services that we're offering here. These are all the services I have in my estate. If I decide that that's wrong, this doesn't do premises access management, I can just remove it there, okay? And if I said, that should be emissions monitoring, for example, then I could select that there and add it in. So I've now added that application offers that service. And that will update here. And again, everything works in the same way. So again, if I click on update organizations, I can see these are the organizations using that application, and I can remove or add. And so once you've got the hang of it, very easy to use. Again, if we look at integrations, we can see applications getting data from these three, sending it to these three. If I decide that's not right, I can just remove it, and I can click down and I can drag another one in, and that will then add it to the integration. So again, very easy to use. In terms of connecting applications to the business, we can see here that these organizations use this application when they're performing these processes. So engineering use Add Excel Energy Manager in the extend storage process. And if I want to, I can click through and I can see what parts of the application, so what services they're using in that process. Okay, if I don't know, I can click functionality unknown. So if you can't capture your services, you can do that, and then you can come back and add it later if you need to. But you can capture that level of detail, and it's very easy to connect these things. Again, technology usage, selected deployments. So if we come into production, we can see that this application needs these things, and we can update it. So if I wanted to update there and say that wasn't Google Chrome, they were actually using Internet Explorer, you can update it. Or you can drag on and it will say, what component is it you need, and you can select one, and then it tells you what products you've got, if any. And then you can go into costs, and you can capture your costs against the application. So we saw the costs against the application, and you can add, edit or update costs here to add them. So it's quite easy. So maintaining the data about the application is really easy. You don't need sort of any modeling information expertise. We also have different types of models. So this would be the capability model editor. So it looks slightly different because it's a reference model, but again, you can see here you've got your capability model, and you can expand it, and then you can move things about. So if I decided that retirement planning shouldn't actually be in acquisition management, it should be in HR management, I can drag that up there, and that will then move it into the right place. So you can do that sort of thing. So we see now that that's up there. I can search for orphans, for example, and I can see these are capabilities that I've added, but they're not in my model. And I could choose to add them to my tree, or I can detach them. So you get the idea, but that's how the editors work. And as I say, they're very similar across all of our editors. They work much in the same way. So if I looked at the process editor, I can see here again I've got my tabs. I can add the capabilities that are supporting, the roles I need, what functionality I need. Just use the update tab to update any of these things. And then the link to application again is a grid. These organizations use these applications in this process. And again, you can see the type. And we have editors across lots of things. So across application and business and sort of more strategic scenario analysis, the information layer, projects, strategy, supplier and contracts, and technologies. And as John said, we're adding to them all the time. So that's really what I wanted to show you today. So sort of an overview of the viewer and the types of things we can do, and then the main way of kind of getting data in at the beginning and then maintaining data. So any questions?